What up YouTube, Webhead Mike here, and I'm going to continue Zenkaikon's Day 2 LARP coverage with the bell, the book, and the candle. Now this was one of the two quest lines I could have chosen. The other was the Maze of the Scale, which was intended to be a diplomacy and dungeon crawl experience. And I just thought to myself, I could do that, Suzaku could do that, he might be really good at it, but is it really what he would want to do? Given his affinity for the legal system and practices, the bell, the book, and the candle seem to hold more affinity for him, considering it would deal with a murder mystery and therefore the criminal justice system, which he's had quite a few brushes with. So I went with that. And sure enough, it was the better choice. In the course of this, we learned that one of the anthropomorphized, I think it was either a fox person or a wolf person, their father was supposedly murdered over some artifacts that we're not too sure what their importance is. However, whenever I hear the word artifact, I think of, well, the feather that Suzaku has, and clearly it's going to be important at some point soon. So, might as well go ahead and check it out. The first one was a candle. Now the candle was held by Fergus, a golden retriever Scottish guard dog, and that's what it was out to be. And the candle had this rainbow glitter about it, but whenever you burned it, it would not consume. And the feature of it was that it would put you to sleep. And this was supposedly done as a way to make sure that children, while they would be sometimes studious and up late studying or maybe doing things they shouldn't, if they have this as their light source, well then eventually they will have to go to sleep. So that was the first one that we did. Next up was Merinda, who was a dingo, a dream speaker as I remember it, often described as simple and colorful, and she had some fondness of a book and a key to a great treehouse of knowledge. And something about stopping the wilding, which was talked about earlier, where these anthropomorphized people were giving into the more wild instincts, sort of like in Zootopia. And it was said to be that this book was in a mystic language and it had to deal with astral projection. Not too much known about that, but that'll come into play later. And finally, there was Sergei, a humanoid Russian Caucasian dog, built big, and I mean big. And he was a military man, and I immediately thought, well, this is the guy that Suzaku is really going to try to hit things off with. However, sadly, when we're getting to some of these other ones, we began to realize that he might be a murder suspect, so we decided to not go to him first. So we instead went to Fergus, got the candle, got to Merinda, who had the book, but also the blue bell, called the Bell of Longing. And its special effect was that whenever it rang, there would suddenly be a triggering of appetite, much like a Pavlovian response, and you would be compelled to finish whatever was around you. This was again meant as to make sure children would finish all their meals. Now, when it came to Fergus, there was also a bit where we had to help him repair a wall that was broken, and sadly, this was one of those cases where the game master had so much more planned, but for whatever reason, the chaos that ensued at the table took up a little bit too much time. There was too much planning and forethought, and we weren't able to get it done within about, I think it was 2 or 3 hours. So there was sadly a lot of things cut out, but he was able to roll with it excellently. Now finally, we went to Sergei, and this was the guy that Suzaku knew I have to hit off with this guy. And going into this, there was a lot of talk about how he's not really a bad guy. He he views things in a certain way, and if you operate outside of that, he either doesn't understand you or he thinks you're trying to undermine whatever process of whatever's come before. So that's when I, as Suzaku, said, as a man of the military, I can understand your sentiment. The body does not work unless everything works in unison. If the brain needs to move something, the signal needs to go uninterrupted from the brain, down the brainstem, down the spine, to the nerve ending of the finger to make it twitch and move appropriately. If that doesn't happen, the body doesn't function. And sure enough, that got through to him and got us to show, I think it was a coyote guy he had in his dungeon. And there were some other subjects who were succumbing to the wilding and had then become just wild attack dogs, whom he then tried to sick on us. Now, again, because there wasn't enough time to finish the whole thing, he just had them turn on him, and we had to make the decision of, do we let them continue, or do we try to save him? Well, Suzaku, being a man of the military and believing in the process, decided, of course, he was going to be among those that would try to save him. I believe Judy Hopps also was, and her fox friend too. Now, oddly enough, Sergei never admitted to actually murdering Aurora's father, but I have to imagine he might have, because her father was trying to understand more about the wilding, and that could have led to a greater occurrence of it happening, and I guess that's what triggered his ire against this inquiry. I believe the words was, "Such knowledge is too dangerous." Now, eventually, we were able to stop the dogs from attacking him further. In Suzaku's case, it was because he recently learned an excellent way to deal with dogs, speaking in a stern manner, from the opening event, the puppy petting situation. And that's where that left off. We then found White Fang, a wolf named White Fang who had the Wolf's Fang artifact, and that led us on to our next and final convergence, the lair of Bahamut. And that is going to have to wait for next time because I'm already a little over. Again, it was a fun experience. I got to do quite a lot of role-playing, just as the moniker would have suggested from the tags. And it was fun. I actually got to do far much more than just simply make checks. There was indeed a lot of dialogue that was required in the course of this. And Suzaku, despite being a more combat-focused character, once again shows that with a proper role player, which I was able to do, is able to fit in many situations. But I've gone on long enough. I have to get on to finishing this video and then getting on to the lair of Bahamut right after this. So, I thank you for your time. Please consider liking and subscribing. And until next time, Webhead Mike, out.